is there?
If you look, I'm a student of history myself.
Yeah.
I've gone as far as master's level. I dropped on my doctorate level. Women were revered in the African cultural traditional system and belief system. It is somehow when cultures started meeting and we adapted something which is not our own European way of seeing, giving the Swiss coming here and other cultures infiltrating South Africa, not South Africa only, Europe. When you look even in the Stone Age and others and the drawings and art thing, you will realize that women were in the forefront of the home. Even at the home, there were the matriarchal families and matriarchal societies where society was dependent on a woman being the forebearer of the family. Then we changed that in a way in which, it can't be explained today. Look at King Shaka, like you have said. Look at Queen Mujati. And the recent example that you were also saying, look at how society, when the Queen Mantombi was installed as a regent, we never celebrated her greatly. And now we're saying we don't even know whether are we flying house masks or this and that, because the patriarchal mentality is that, everything good that man does, it's good. And a man should be celebrated more than a woman. Look at how Batswani was treated at African Bank because of the patriarchal mentality of men who doesn't even want to create a conducive environment for women to coexist.
Mesh, to bring you into this now, just understanding now the fundamentals in terms of how patriarchy expresses itself in the household in itself. When the scales start, and I'm giving it because of the current economic climate, where more and more women are starting to hold the power of the pocket. They're starting to earn more than their male counterparts. But you keep hearing of examples of women who get now abused by these men because they're earning more than the men, and the men don't know how to love a woman that is empowered. What's happening in our communities and in our homes?
Mommy Faith and the listeners, it's quite unfortunate that we have to be talking patriarchy 27 years after we've got this new dispensation. And I'd like to support the previous comments about how we've actually stood by the patriarchal structures, which we don't even understand where they're coming from. However, I like us to actually look at it and say, is it really about a decision that this man makes in a vacuum, or is it a system? It's a system that he's been raised in, and yes, he needs to snap out of it. But snapping out of a system that you have been raised in for 40 years, Mommy Faith, it's for some of us. Myself, I'm here, and some few dads that we run the Dads in the Picture movement with, we get it. But for us to get it alongside all of our brothers, we need to do a lot of groundwork. There's no excuse for us to still be in a patriarchal society. There's no excuse, because right now I've got a daughter that I'm raising. I'm raising her as a whole person, a human being. I'm not raising her as a part of something that's coming in her life. I'm raising my son as a whole human being, not as part of something that's coming in her life. So we cannot continue to oppress, whilst at the same time, the very same women that are in our households are the ones that are keeping things together when some of us as men drop the ball. So we need to relook at this and say, yes, I might be in a house with my partner who is actually earning more than me, but how does that translate? And just give me a second to look at how it translates from that partner, understanding that now she's in that role and she needs to be actually equal. The fact that you are in a marriage, it's a partnership. Can we define the partnership? It's a partnership. I bring my strengths, you bring your strengths. If for a second you had the strength of finance in the house, you were putting it forward. Now she has the strength of finance. She has the right to put it forward. It shouldn't be a matter of, no, because I'm a man now, I cannot actually subscribe to that. One thing that happens is that as we raise our boy child, we raise our boy child as a provider more than anything else, whilst we raise our girl child as somebody who's going to be a mother, who's going to hold a house, who's going to be actually, for now, because of the change in the dynamics, now we're raising them to be successful, as I mentioned about my daughter. Yeah. So we need to make sure that we rewire these young people, but the current situation, which needs the exact response now is that we need to get as much information into the heads of our fellow men. In That's in the Picture, we do what we call men engage sessions, where we basically say, let's unpack, let's take this onion that is rotten from a distance and try and peel it off to see if its heart is still something we can salvage. Because the minute we salvage that heart, then we can get the men to accept that when you are not having the financial power, you cannot be the head. When you have the financial power, you shouldn't be the head, you should be a leader. And leadership is about that, to understand that everyone that you are leading has rights, has responsibilities, has to be acknowledged. But until we get to that point, then the patriarchal system will be in place, because the very young women who were raised by the mothers head by patriarchal system believe in the patriarchal system in a way. It's like a lady who says, I am earning more, but instead of her stepping up and saying, this is the power that now I have, it's more like, this is my money. You are still the man.
Yeah,
you must still lead.
You're mentioning such an interesting point, and I want to bring also into this point that you're raising. So and I know that you've also got some personal insights to share from that, from the journey that you've gone through, because at one stage you were bringing home the bacon in the household. Can a man, or have we structured our system and our homes in such a way that when a man does not have money, automatically it relegates him to not being the head of the household, that the headship of a home is based on the financial provision or the provision given by a man?
Thank you, Faith. I think, first of all, I would want to even cancel out when we talk about headship. I think that's where the problems begin. And we've been so much conditioned or socialized as a community, as a people together, to think and do things this way. When I say this way, I mean patriarchal way. As much as we would really desire to come out of it, but there are institutions which are still existing, which perpetuate or kind of make the system to continue. Our religious background, that's the first thing where we are often and always being taught that man is a provider. And when we're being taught daily that man is a provider, it goes back to what my brother has just said, that, a woman would keep her money and say, you must provide. And if we live in a relationship, or if we live in a society that encourages a relationship to be a partnership, not where a man is above a woman, then we would be able to make sure that certain things do not affect us the way they have been. Regardless of either it's a man or a woman who brings back the bacon, that is a non-issue. The main thing should be who is able to do it at that time. And, we are so much damaged mentally, I must say. I mean, we have even counseled quite a lot of couples where you find a woman is earning more. And the struggle is so much. Why? Because we have been indoctrinated in our head that a man needs to bring the money. So even us as women, somehow we are still perpetuating the system of patriarchy, unknowingly so, because you still feel, no, this man needs to bring in the bacon.
Why am I changing the tires if he's got money to change the tires? Why am I looking after this thing if I've got a man?
Yeah. And we continually look up and say such. And unknowingly so, we are saying to the men that you are above me. You see, you should be the one doing these things for me. But it could change our mentality and think of partnership. I mean, Faith, we are living in an era now where I could go to school with my husband and I choose a career which in 10 years, it would make me a CEO of some massive company. And he could be a person who probably who doesn't earn a lot, but depending on the career that we chose, So you can't not even say, no, you didn't study or you are not working hard. It's just about the careers that we are in, which allow
anyone who cared to listen that I will not accept lobola for my daughter when she gets married. Faith, this is met with resistance. I'm accused of shunning the Setswana culture, but I'm not budging. 0861987000. Give us a history lesson. Where does this thing come from? Siseko, hi. It's been a while.
Hi, Faith. It has. And thank you very much for curating such an interesting discussion, and to your guests as well. I just want to answer the two questions that you started the conversation with, in the sense of what are the origins, and this follow-up question, which is to say, is this an African thing? I think for me, if we read history properly, we find that the origins of patriarchy come from the Abrahamic traditions. And of course, we've got three of those. It is Christianity, Islam, as well as Judaism, right? So if you think about those in terms of, even when you go to the Torah, when you go to the Quran, when you go to the Bible, you find in many instances that it's always the male who inherits the word, passes it down according to his lineage, his sons, etc., etc. And in the narratives we find in these particular scriptures, they are silent in the first instance about women. And if they're not silent about women, women feature in very, very curious kinds of ways. And I'm going to now take you to the second question, which is to say, is this an African thing? I don't necessarily believe so, because if you go back to Isi Amadioum's The Invention of Woman, which came out in Invention of Women, Male Daughters, Female Husbands, that's the title of the book, which came out in 1978. She showcases in many instances how Christianity played a very active role, necessarily through the colonial missionaries, to displace the religions that necessarily venerated the place of women in society as leaders. The reason why she chooses such a title is because the male daughters, in many respects, it signified how women were able to transgress certain social boundaries, hold land titles, as well as political titles in society. A decade later, in 1998, we have, or 2 decades later rather, in 1998, we have Oyeronke Oyawumi discussing the invention of Africa in sociology. And she also suggests, in many respects, how women as character becomes invented owing to the discourses that we create around women, as your guest has just indicated, this idea of subservience, this idea of the fact that we have to force women to genuflect to the male in the household or within society. And I quite agree with the idea of socialization. It all goes back to how we have imbibed ideology. If we go back to our historical societies, because Ife Amadioum's study was based in terms of the Nigerian societies, and specifically how they were associated or socialized rather in terms of placing women in society, we actually will find that there's been an incredible sense of displacement around the function and role of women within society. Thank you, Faith.
Thank you very much for that, Siseko. We're going to keep taking in your calls. I see that our lines are completely chock-a-block full. Don't fret. Keep phoning in. We'll make sure that your voice is heard. Where does patriarchy come from? Is it African? Where did we learn it? And ladies, if your man should say, baby, I want to be a stay-at-home husband, okay? I want to raise the kids. Would you still regard him as a leader or partner in your home? Are you ready for it? It's 1:30. Let's catch up with your latest in Power News with Thomas White.
Good afternoon. In news making headlines, former Eskom acting CEO Matsela Koko says he was not deployed to the power utility by the African National Congress. Koko is testifying at the state expressed his disappointment with the lack of global solidarity in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has seen African states lag behind their Western counterparts, both in treatment and vaccination. Ramaphosa spoke earlier on the roundtable to discuss the work of the independent panel for pandemic preparedness and response.
The mandate of the panel is founded on the firm conviction that we must act now as a global community to prevent another pandemic from ever again causing such death and devastation
about to have
and turmoil.
I think it's
More
the last
details on these and other stories at the top of the
wonderful
hour.
Results. So welcome again to the show.
Do you think as the NICD you have had a conversation by now to say, well, you think government should take a decision to probably restrict traveling between South Africa and India at the moment?
We have not specifically made those recommendations, but those discussions obviously are occurring at high level at MAC and at the incident management team level together with government. We don't understand much about the Indian variant in terms of its transmissibility. So in terms of that, I would say we are not really concerned.
Dr. Jinal Bimal, principal
with guests,
medical scientist at the...
Yeah, we'll introduce them as we go, but I can see on the screen now.
National Institute of Communicable Disease.
Power Talk, weekdays 9 a.m. to noon on Power 98.7.
Business, revenue, and organizational design. We're experts at that. Is your business facing difficulty? Then submit your organizational challenges with us for a chance to get organizational improvement services and solutions for your business with DSO Consulting. Visit power987.co.za. Click on the Power Solutions pop-up tab and fill in the forms to stand to be selected. Then tune into Power Solutions with Dumisang Glovo Thursdays on Power Business, with a DSO Consulting business specialist to assist you with your business challenges and offer tailored solutions. Power Solutions, Thursdays on Power Business, brought to you in partnership with DSO Consulting. Truth, trust, results.
Call Faith on 0861 987 000.
We're talking about the origins of patriarchy, how to evolve as a society when the economic script gets flipped. Earning capacity than their male counterparts, it causes a rift and a frustration in the household where it even gets violent, where men will hit their woman because of the nature of power, influence, and why do we still have that competition that exists between the genders? And also, is it truly African to be patriarchal? Did we as African people say, actually, you know what, it's our thing? We're still in conversation with Jabu Baloyi, who's from the Commission of Gender Equality, the founders of Dads in the Practice Organization, Mesh Kekane, and of course the co-founder of a couple of things and a marriage counselor, Tsotso Musi. The calls are all yours, 0861-987-000. Where does this thing come from? Makosonke, hi.
Hey, you're Faith.
Yes, Papa, go ahead.
Oh, yes. I hope the questions that I want to pose will help us address the issue you are dealing with today. Now, firstly, how can we eradicate patriarchy when we men incorrectly defining the true identity of women? Secondly, can we rule and reign over God? If we cannot, what makes us men believe we can rule and reign over women when they have power to create human race if we mean business about eradicating patriarchy as men? Lastly, don't you think a man who wants to marry you as Faith and he doesn't understand that you are a Proverb 31 woman, will he not perpetuate patriarchy? As my parting shot, it is my prayer that God bless you with a man who is secure in his position as a real man, which culminates with him allowing you to reach fullest potential of your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful prayer. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Makosonke. Amen. Amen and amen. And so it shall be, of course. 0861987000. Where does it come from? Tapelo in Teresa Park. Hi.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, sir? Go ahead.
I'm good. It's definitely an African origin. The Bible came in and it was sort of an aha moment because it sort of confirmed the ideologies that were already being taught in Africa. If we were to eradicate patriarchy, we need to go back and relearn the very same elders that taught us that a man should provide and a woman must make sure that the food is always warm.
The hunter-gatherers, basically. The hunters are the ones that hunt and then the gatherers are the women.
Yes, exactly. And as we speak, Faith, this is being taught in initiation schools. Even today, like at the moment, these kids are at the initiation schools. This is what they are being taught, So we need to teach, the next generation of men and women, especially men, that there is nothing wrong with cooking for your woman. There's nothing wrong with washing your clothes. The COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things. A woman would arrive from work, she's tired, and you still expect her to do all those things. But all this time, you're watching Netflix the whole day. That's a ridiculous, Faith.
Yeah.
That needs a mind shift. Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rewiring. And many of us have been hardwired through generations, through socialization, through friends, through
Yet his partner is not even a princess. You need to understand where this actually ends up coming from. I'd like to go more towards this, this not being our, culture, our original culture, because then I look at the political part of it to say there has been a very deliberate and a very well-driven and well-oiled machinery that has been there to make sure that it breaks the families, especially we're talking black families. And that has been done through a lot of institutions, including the migrant labor systems, including the very Christianity that we're talking about, and a whole lot of other ones. Why we decided as that's in the picture to go the route of we want to talk to men, I'm saying in response to the previous caller that we have realized that much as women might have their own faults, one or two, men carry the bigger faults. And I'm saying carrying the bigger faults because they need to come up to a level where they can actually understand that they themselves, as fathers, they are influencing their sons and they are influencing their daughters. So at the end of the day, if I am to say, Musadi Ongkoha Kango, for me, it would mean I do not know who I am. I do not know what value do I have. I do not even know what she represents to me. If she is a queen like my mother, who in actual fact, then I would need to be able to can say, this is a queen that have gone out. I did the dance, I did the expenses, I did everything to put her into my life. And I do not have to make space for her. She is in my life. So the space that is there is hers to take up. But are we coached as young boys growing into men that we're going to be partners? I mean, one of your guests actually mentioned it earlier about headship, and I also mentioned about partnership. Can we get into a partnership arrangement where everybody brings, the business principles of partnership? You don't get into a partnership with somebody that you believe. I mean, we're not talking BEE. We're talking proper partnership where you might not be equal in financial contribution, but you are equal in voting, you are equal in making the direction of the family go, you are equal in coming up with a plan. How are these children going to be raised? And this goes back to also where we come from. If we had our mothers teaching us that our sisters are our partners, our equals, and not us being in the streets 24/7 while they are being empowered in the house, if this patriarchy was not perpetuated from there, it could have long ended. But our mothers were also so caught up emotionally, mentally into the system that they failed to help us out. Now we're focusing on the men. We're saying, we need you to show your son the way and pull him out of that patriarchy. I promise you, if there is a man who's abusing his partner for whatever reason, the parents have a good idea about it. So we need to be really serious about this. If we need to get patriarchy out, we need to talk as men, fix whatever is wrong with us, learn to communicate, learn to understand that this is our value.
I want you to take a pause there, Mesh, because you're mentioning issues of the emotion, and we're going to delve deeper into the emotional state of our relationships here, where men are concerned, where women are concerned. Do we allow weakness? Do we allow vulnerability? Do we allow our men to cry? Or do we just see them as weak when they do? Where does patriarchy come from? Well, now we've got a cultural expert who's joining us on the line, and a historian and an African spiritual advisor, Siam Kize, who's from the Umsamo Institute. Bam Kize, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We are having a conversation around patriarchy. We needed to give a historical, contextual understanding of where this thing comes from. Please take us through history.
Thank you so much for having me. And good afternoon to the listeners. So I'm just going to take us through very briefly, right, through history, but most importantly, the changes that are taking place in Africa in particular, right? We understand that we came from the hunter-gatherer area, and we moved through the three industrial revolutions. But the most important thing to understand, to focus on, I mean, we don't have a lot of time, we can't unpack the history in its entirety, is that the role of a woman in the household and in society has drastically changed, right? And with that change, the man's role has also changed in the family as well, okay? It has become more dynamic, right? And because women's roles and in society and in the home has changed drastically over the years, women are far more dynamic. Women have far greater capacity to adapt, change, and evolve because they were on the back foot because of patriarchy coming from Western society. So as a form of adaptation, they became very, very excellent at adapting and evolving and becoming dynamic, right? Whereas it's not that men don't have the capacity to change and be better. The problem is that men do have number one, there is an unwillingness to become more dynamic. Because
but why is there an unwillingness to become more dynamic, Sia?
I'm getting to that now.
Yeah.
The unwillingness to become more dynamic, it stems from the fact that if I talk about removing patriarchy, or I talk to men to say, look, we need to change the way we perceive our power dynamics with women, that by me elevating women is somehow stripping or taking away from you, right? Is that it's seen as an attack, right? Because if someone's going to talk about patriarchy, the mirror to that would be feminism, right? So now, what the problem that we are sitting with at the moment is men's identities, right, that are independent of women serving them, or women, or them being in some sort of control or power dynamic, completely dissociated from women. That is why women have evolved so well, because they said, okay, fine, if you look at the history that women have faced, they had no choice but to say, actually, who am I if other than being surely I can be more than a mother and a wife. And then they created an identity which is separate from men. The problem with addressing patriarchy is we all think that men should learn to be better towards women. That's not what we need to do. What we need to do is to teach men how to have that they need an identity which has nothing to do with women. Because at the moment,
you're mentioning you're dropping some real nuggets of insight right now that I need to be able to, and I'm sure we all need to be able to internalize them. Men have not discovered who they are independent of women. Does that mean that the value, the self-esteem, the essence of man as it currently stands is significantly dependent on the woman? So is that why we find many men cheating? Is that where the cheating spouse comes in? Is that where men who have got a lot of women in their lives, men who've got a lot of women in their lives, they can boast about it because their identity is entrenched in the woman. So they don't know who they are outside of the woman.
I mean, look, when it comes to infidelity, there's a whole host of spiritual contributions that when it comes to infidelity. But when it comes to the identity and what you're saying, but to agree with you that men's identities, unfortunately, right, almost seem like they're under attack. There's a perception that the identity and manhood is under attack with feminism because we don't know who we are outside of being a man, outside of women. That, okay, fine, if I'm not going to be a provider, if I'm not going to be a husband and a father, who am I? Who am I if I don't have 5, 10, 15 women around me? Right? And when a woman says to you, I don't need you to tell me, I don't need you to provide for me, I don't need you to love me, I don't need your validation from me, I don't need you to control my body and my sexual autonomy and agency, what are we left with as men?
Yeah, Sia, I know you've dropped the bombs. We're interrogating patriarchy. Where does it come from? Is it African? And do men have identities outside of women? And are men feeling like they're under attack? Let me ask you this, men. Do you feel like you are under attack? And if you feel like you're under attack, who's attacking you? Where's the war coming from? What are you afraid of? Let's take your calls after this.
As businesses confront slow growth and other economic challenges, including the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Industrial Development Corporation has structured a range of funding products to help struggling companies. To find out if you qualify, call the Industrial Development Corporation on 0860-693-888 or visit idc.co.za. The Industrial Development Corporation, your partner in development finance. Terms and conditions apply.
Urgent, topical, timely. Power 98.7. Getting you talking about what matters.
Hey, let's get talking. We're talking patriarchy this afternoon. Thank you so much for all of you who've been holding. Thank you so much for all of those that are trying to get through. Please, please, please. We're going to make this as quick as possible so many of you can share your views. As we can see, we're chock-a-block. Beggy Kempton Park. Beggy, thank you for holding so long. Thank you. Hi.
Fifi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, sir?
Yeah. I'm talking. I'm going to talk as a black person in general, as particular as a Zulu person. You know, as a Zulu person, there's a saying that that loosely means when men have failed dismally, they submit themselves to a superior structure that are women, and they say, "Look here, we failed. How are we get out of this problem?" Like in a war, when they're experiencing defeat, they go to women. Why? Because women were and are still regarded as a superior structure of society. Okuhlula amadoda kuyabikwa ngiyakubika kuwona ebehlulekile ubika ebafazini. Right. Let us take the ANC as a ruling party. How many women in the top 6? You tell me. It's one.
Mm-hmm.
You can see there's a lack of sincerity. They were just doing. You know, if they're leading a political organization, they still look down as women as inferior being. You better believe me, Faith. We have a long, long way to go.
I got you, Biggie, in Kempton Park. I got to run. Let's go to the Val. Lebo, hi.
Good day. I start with a quote. If the so-called God created a man in his own image, which image did he use in creating a woman? The real God here is a woman. The real heaven is a woman's womb. Women must stop asking for permission for men in order to take their position in the family and in society as a whole.
But what happens though, Lebo, when a woman wants to take the position in the household, in the home, in society, and the pushback is that they feel as though they are now a threat to their male counterparts? Well, you want to make a decision in a household, but then you get stopped at the door with the situation or the saying of Guamila. As soon as a man says mo ke haka, what do you do, and how does a woman then take a position in that instance?
It stems from the nature of a relationship, to the person you are with from the get-go. What was the relationship between the two of you? How did you come into a position of now being a family and having children? Was it just pretending and pillow talk and all that? And you find that when it comes to real leadership, then there's a push. We must get to know one another.
Love it. Let's go to the CBD in Pretoria. Kabelo, hi.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, sir? Go ahead.
Yes, good show, interesting topic. Faith,
thank you.
Quickly, before I get to my point, I'm raising a young woman who's asking a lot of questions. Faith, in my home, I cook, sometimes I clean, and I bring home the money.
Yes.
My women take care of the children, but sometimes I pass them. We have two centers of power. I bring her all the money and the things, and that the power that she has is to enlarge my name. That's the power that any man does not have. She has a different function, but she's not lesser than I am. Faith, patriarchy in an African context was meant to protect women from harm, but they still have a center of power. In the European context, was to cripple a woman. Women did not have any kind of opportunity or power. The only opportunity that they had was through prostitution. Today, we have women who are being belittled from wearing a miniskirt. But in our culture, women used to wear a piece of leather or whatever, but they were respected. You would never hear any form of a belittling or maybe a rape or any kind. That shows you how the women were respected in our tribe. So I agree with you. We put ourselves into something that we don't understand. The only patriarchy that we're pushing now is of the Western culture.
Interesting stuff there. Let's go to Pretoria as well. Let's stay in Pretoria. Katlaho, hi.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, sir? Go ahead.
I'm all right. I think a certain element of how we view as Africans, how we view patriarchy is in our languages. If you check our languages, a lot of the things are gender neutral. Even come korbiza mudimu are remit in terms of he or she, remit in terms of the aspect of the person mudimu. Kimos kuemfela mo mudimu iling mon now, and I say like that. And another thing, get the concept of the strong man. I think you are strong enough to let a woman be stronger in instances where her particular skill and knowledge is only prospering as a female. We shouldn't look at things as when we for us to as a female, not to prosper my ego and anything like that. So I think as men and as men of South Africa, a lot of things are going wrong because we are not strong enough, especially to let our women lead and acknowledge hormosari role. It's way better than munna o mong so, and just to answer the last question, do men think we are under attack? So now I think, yes, we are under attack, but we are under attack from ourselves, a mirror version of ourselves. In any form of way. We are under attack from those men. Even for things they don't make sense. We are also under attack from those people. So if we don't wake up as men and acknowledge our women and give them the power that's due to them, regards to the prosperity of society.
I hear you completely. Thank you so much. Let's go to Sammy G. Sammy, you're Tsoto's partner. Hi. Yes, you couldn't leave your wife, man. Why must you just now enter the thing? You're talking patriarchy. Talk to us.
Yeah, no, what an interesting subject. It's one very close to me as well. And I'm very appreciative of the guys that have given comments here. That you can hear there's a shifting, and many of us we want to be better men, because remember, this learning we have has been embedded in men, so we are trying to unlearn so that we can learn and be better people. But now the struggle is there of unlearning the things that were wrong. What I want to say mainly is where patriarchy coming from. Patriarchy.
Oh, Sammy, your line. Let's just try to get you a clearer line, and then we're going to continue this conversation. Let's go to Boxburg, though. Godfrey, hi. Godfrey, won't you turn off your radio, please? Oh, there we go. Godfrey, hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello. I just wanted to respond to where patriarchy comes from.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We did not have patriarchy in African history or otherwise. We need to get our history from before the white men came to Egypt and conquered Egypt and all of that. You will find when you read African history, women were in the forefront. For an example, you'll get the Black Madonna. She was female. The first university that was built in Europe was built by a black African woman. So there was no patriarchy back then. But then jumping back quickly to religion, you will find that even in the beginning, God created men and women. He did not create a man and then bring the men to come and be over. But because of men who wanted to control women, they then came up with this thing that God made Adam to sleep and then took a rib and then created the woman, which was wrong. If you read their religion, you go to the Christian religion, Islam, they all have one simple aspect, putting women down. And if we can go back and then say, the Christian religion has done better. If you read the book, the book itself, you'll find that in a lot of scriptures, God has been talking about degrading women, and which is wrong. So there has never been patriarchy in African history. It only became patriarchy because of what? Religion and men who wanted to control.
Yeah. All right. Listen, our lines are full. Keep calling. We want to be able to get your point across, but we're going to continue this conversation. If patriarchy is a Western ideology, if it was brought to us as Black African people, why are we allowing it? Or are we allowing it because it benefits us? When I mean us, I mean the men. But because things are changing and economic structures are changing, is that where the war now is coming from? Talk to us. We can have this conversation extended after this. It's 2:00. Let's get your latest in Power News with Thomas White.
Power News.
The top stories at this hour. Matsela Koko says he wasn't at ESCOM to pursue ANC agendas, and
so long as Africa remains
is my Twitter handle at PowerFM987 is the Twitter handle. Of course, please, when you just engaging with us, won't you just hashtag Power Lunch so that we can get through all of your insights as well. We're having a conversation this afternoon about patriarchy and the origin. Where does this thing come from? It's a dirty thing, it would seem, but where does it come from, right? Who invented it? And why did we embrace it? Did we embrace it because it started benefiting us? And as the scales are starting to tip and when women are starting to bring home the bacon, so as it were, do men feel like they are under attack? And if you do feel like you're under attack, who's attacking you? Who's that person that is attacking you? And where does the war come from? We're getting into this matter, of course, with Meshke Kana, founder of Dads in the Picture organization, and of course, the co-founder of a couple of things and a marriage counselor, Tsotso Musi. Our Jabu Baloi had to rush off to a meeting, but the conversation still does continue. So we're going to introduce now Sammy G from a couple of things, and Siam Kizan, African spiritual advisor, is also joining us for that conversation. So it's a jam-packed home here. Sammy, hi, you've got a clearer line. What were you saying just about patriarchy? You say you understand it intricately.
Yeah, look, my understanding of it, I think it stems from one thing, the thirst of power, or the thirst for power, an unquenchable thirst for power. I mean, compare this to apartheid. For apartheid to thrive, the power was behind apartheid. It's as much as power is behind the patriarchy, and men are we're very comfortable when we see the scale where I am above and she's under, and that's a relationship that a man can thrive in and be a man that he believes he is a man. But then, should the tables turn, that's when now you realize that the man doesn't know who he is, because now he will want to adjust now in life so that he can still find himself above.
So men do feel like they're under attack.
Men do feel we are under attack, and we are under attack by ourselves. We are attacking ourselves. The mind that we have grown into of knowing who we are, the position that we have been holding in relationships, now it's like it's taken away from us, and of which that's not. And that is why myself and Zozo have a topic that we like, where we speak of individuality in couples or in relationships. Who are you without the other one? Will you still remain yourself without the other one?
It's a very interesting one as well that you're speaking about here, Sammy, and it's one that we need to interrogate further. How does it find an expression through it? So, you know, when you're speaking, as just following on with what Sammy was saying, that we need to be able to understand relationships on a context of partnership. Why is it, and this is such an emotional, I think a vulnerable kind of conversation, but why is it that women who are in empowered positions, women who are earning more than their male counterparts, women who are more influential than their male counterparts, when they get abused by their partners, whether emotionally or physically or otherwise, they still stay with them? What happens? What is it that makes a woman who is empowered, who's got her own money, who's got her own resources, stay in the abuse?
Okay, I think women who remain in an abusive relationship, it isn't much about the power that they hold. It's highly psychological. You know, there's a lot of elements that contribute. Can you still hear me?
I can. We've got you to continue.
Okay. There are a lot of stuff or things rather which contribute a lot to a woman remaining in an abusive relationship, regardless of their financial power. And this speaks to how are they being affected emotionally, or how are they stable enough within themselves with who they are outside them in a relationship. How do you see yourself? Who am I outside this relationship? So sometimes it's not about the money, because you do find, like you're saying, women who are financially stable, but they still remain there. So which says a lot that it's not about the money that makes a woman to stay in a relationship. There's a lot of psychological issues that we find women are struggling with that keeps them to be in that abusive relationship.
And I'm taking some of your tweets as well. The B Power was saying, "Hi Faith, if patriarchy is not an African thing, it simply means that like inequality and many other societal ills, patriarchy was structured and this was to simply take away the becoming of Black communities." Interesting. They keep it going. Pastor Edmore saying, "Hi, Faith. The last caller before the news is a disgrace to us, man and God. How dare he mocks us like that? The Bible empowers women and men. All duties of humankind were prescribed by God. Whoever undermines the woman due to the Bible is an unbeliever." Africa saying that what I'm picking up from the callers is that most people think patriarchy is femicide. No, it's a structural issue and must be addressed as such. Look, just keep them coming. I can see. I'm trying to get through as many of it as possible. The Wolf of Bell Pepper saying, "Faith, on patriarchy, people legitimize it. The notion that the man must pay at dates. I mean, why? We have the same job, same education, work, same company, same salary, but the man must pay." Hey, Makoa saying that, "Hi Faith, the mirrors exactly race relations, at least in the country. If you look at it at large, Black people racially occupy the same positions as men, as women in patriarchy. Patriarchy, like racism, was a necessary devil in society where domination is rewarded." Let's go straight to the phone lines. Pat in Centurion. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Faith.
Yes, Mama, go ahead.
So I do agree with the majority of the callers. My perspective on it is it's actually still in place. One, because the last tweet that you read, comparing patriarchy to white privilege. So there was a point where men came to be in a privileged position when it comes to relationships. And therefore, if you were to ask them to change that would mean that they had to give up some of that privilege. And I think one of the aspects that added to patriarchy is feminism. In as much as it was well-meaning, we found our power, we found the freedom to go and work and do other things that were initially maybe designed for men to actually be in those positions of going to work while the women stayed at home. But we've expanded that. We did not lose our identity because we still have the role of the mother, of the wife that we still occupy. But the man is only still occupying the role of the provider. Whereas we actually want them to actually change, to also expand, not to lose the role of the provider, but to share that with the woman.
But Pat, let me ask you this, as a fellow woman. What if your partner said, "Baby, I don't want to be the one that's the provider. I genuinely want to be given the option, and from a genuine place, I genuinely want to be given the option of looking after the children. I want to raise the kids. I want to clean the nappies and do all of that stuff. I want to be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home husband." Will you allow them that space to do that?
I would 100% not have a problem. If we have the financial means to one of us to stay at home, I would not have a problem with it. And that's exactly what we're doing. For the men not to see themselves only as the provider, their identity has to expand because ours also had to expand at some point.
Got you. Let's go to Cape Town. Hi, Reginald.
Hi, Faith.
Papa. Go ahead.
You see, I think one thing that we need to understand, patriarchy is a social system and in different traditions. It's not an African tradition. But the main thing that we need to understand is our beliefs and our tradition, our customs. If, for example, one believes in the Bible, it means one must also will have a situation where the man is the head of the house, for example. But also, if you understand that, why do we have our women changing surnames to the surnames of the male side? Now we will understand that it's not the issue of patriarchy, it's the issue of understanding that as human beings we have got roles in life. But I just wanted to highlight that for every revolution we need to prepare ourselves. If we do not prepare ourselves, it means we are going to get to this confusion. And in this case, I'm saying men were not prepared, and women as well were not prepared for this revolution of now our generation, where we question a lot of things. And
so then, Reginald, how do men prepare themselves? And you mentioned such an interesting thing about the surname issue. Me, I want to be educated. Why can't my partner take my surname? Why can't my partner be Mr. Mangope? You know, where is the fault in that? what was the understanding of that in the first place? Why can't my partner be Mr. Mangope and I'll be Miss Mangope like the Queen?
It originates from your tradition and your culture. That's why you see people from the royal families do not change, even if they are women, they do not change their surnames to the male in most instances. Now, because of the traditions and the culture, how you can have a set of rules in your culture, for example, in Pedi, you can have this in Tswana. It depends on where you originated from. That's why I'm saying, if your belief is also in the Bible, you will also have that setup where you have man at the head of the house. Because that's how your belief is.
Got you completely. Let's go to Alberton. Percy, hi.
Hi, how's it?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, sir? Go ahead.
Great, thanks. I think there's 2 points. One, we should not perpetuate the ignorance that societal issues are not inherent to everyone. I believe white women are also facing the same issues with black people. So I don't take the view of putting this to the West people. If we do that, we then pushing the blame, right? So instead of fixing the issues, we actually pushing the blame, because I think these are personal disorders, narcissistic or whatever we want to call it.
So you think that patriarchy comes from a narcissistic personality disorder?
I think, in short, it's a cult of certain people who actually portray that, and they will be found everywhere, right? The reason I say that, in short, my grandfather, right, didn't know Christianity at all, but he knew how the society actually works. So we can't actually say it's the worst, because he didn't believe in those things, right? But his system was, he's the man, and he has to provide. But I realized that while he was working in the farm, my grandmother also worked domestically, so they were both providing. So I think we shouldn't run away from the issue that this is our problem. Because the minute we start pointing fingers, you actually lose the conclusion.
I got you. Let's go to Waterkloof. Phil, hi. Thank you so much for holding.
Thank you, Sis Faith, and to your learned guest. In order to build a new society, we need to agree that men should also become feminists. You know how you socialize children from an early age, producing, the girl-child boss culture. You also need to teach children those roles that boys play, and teach your boys those roles that girls play, so that you produce people a new society that will not be focusing on patriarchy, because it doesn't assist to recycle how we were socialized in the past. Apartheid has damaged some of us. Apartheid has produced the monsters that you see today, because during apartheid there was this autocratic social system where the power, force, and dominance was key, and it ended up getting into the family setting. And with some Roman laws, the pater familias, which regarded men as the head of the society, and the modern laws that are still reinforcing that, it creates a problem. But we need to produce an egalitarian society, where we are all equal before the law, where we practice everything equal in the house, rather than men thinking that they are the leaders, providers, and protectors.
I got you. I completely got you. I need to run. Let's go to Pretoria. Master, hi.
Hi, Faith. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolute pleasure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say one word. Ego of men. It is what it is. It's got nothing to do. I agree with a couple of callers, after the news. Ego, that is our number one killer. Everything that we do, our ego rises up to say, I need power over this. We were created equally. Yes, women have got more power than us in the sense that they are able to carry us for 9 months. They are able to raise us up and talk to us. Now, the ego starts when we start departing from your own mother, taking instructions from your own mother. And you then say, now I am a man, I can do all things. Meanwhile, the person who carried you for 9 months was telling you things, was able to raise you up in the person. Now, when you depart, your ego there, when you depart from your mother, that's when everything goes astray. I thank you.
Thank you so much for that one. Thabo Makauta saying that high faith patriarchy is as a result of natural progression where women now sought self-autonomy from the other former status quo of being subservient to men. Patriarchy has no nationality. It is just a weapon used by men refusing to accept the female autonomy. Themba Mgwenya saying high faith patriarchy is all about protection of private property inheritance along the male lines. Wow, what a mouthful. Protection of private property inheritance. Mamela's poor along the male lines, hence the adoption of the man's surname to safeguard inheritance. It is also supported systematically by the dominant economic class cultural hegemony. Yeah, man, keep it going. Why do we have this thing? Let's go to Owen in Kempton Park. Owen, thank you so much for holding so long. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. And you, sir? Go ahead.
Yes, in faith, I have just one thing to tell women of this world. Yeah, well, you don't need men to tell you that you have power. If Sasa, all of the women, I think I've said this before, if all of the women in the world tomorrow would wake up and decide which enough is enough, trust me, enough will be enough. You guys, if you can unite, we can go to early elections. Who ANC, they will. You understand where I'm going with this?
Got you. Good. See, if we unite, we've got more power than what we know.
Your number in the world.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't make sense. Why should you be led by men? If all the women can decide if South Africa needs to go to elections, our organizations needs to go to early Congress, those things will happen because of your numbers. But it's not happening. I don't know why. But that's the power that the women have. And you don't need us to tell you that.
Owen, you've said something so beautiful. And I wonder, as we're speaking about patriarchy, us as women, let's talk a little bit, girls. Do we perpetuate patriarchy in ourselves? Do we allow it to exist in our environments? Do we allow patriarchy to continue to fester in our environments because we would rather see a woman as a competitor than a collaborator? Then we'd rather see a woman as a threat to us. So we would rather, this also maybe brings this question, that we would rather fight with the woman than fight against a man. That we would rather say we'd protect the woman's ego at the expense of another woman because we cannot fathom how another woman who's equally capable, who's beautiful, who's assertive, who is in her own right, we cannot understand how this woman can coexist in our circle and not be a threat to what we have. Do we as women also perpetuate a patriarchal system? This thing is making me think maybe we could have had a woman president a long time ago. Maybe the reason why we don't even have a woman president is because we as women can't find synergies and collaboration and unity within ourselves. So we're always seeking for the validation of a man. You're making me think this afternoon. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're taking more of your calls.
In a world that's driven by numbers, the only number you'll ever need to know to drive away with the best deals on VW Crofter taxis, panel vans, or any other people movers is 0861 VW Taxi. Our rated #1 VW Crofter dealers offer expert advice, fantastic deals, and custom-built packages on VW Crofter taxis and panel vans. And all are waiting for your call. It's that simple. Call 0861 VW Taxi today. HatfieldGroup.co.za. Rated #1 in service.
Tweet Faith @Faith Mangope and #PowerLunch.
And of course, as we wrap up this conversation, I'm going to take more of your calls. Let's go to Red Up quickly. Pumlani, hi.
Madam Unjani.
Yeah, Pilunjani Puti, go ahead.
Great, thanks. I think patriarchy is a function of time. It's not something that's fixed. At my house, it's a patriarchal house, but the form of patriarchy we have, it's not the same that my father had in his house.
How so?
So what I'm saying to women is, it can be, it's something that can be changed. It's not, if you're not happy with the current patriarchy, its form now, women can always change it.
Can they? Can they? Mesh, as we heard, we're hearing what some of our callers are saying. And I think what's coming out as a big theme is that women do not know the power that they possess, and that the power of saying no is a real power that they can use.
Message. All that I am today is a combination of life experiences. All my thoughts have been molded by the past that I've gone through. And as such, in order for me to raise boys and girls who will grow into men and women of dynamic power, then I need to raise them intentionally to be leaders, to be partners in their own right, without needing to step on anyone's toe or needing to lean against someone. Women could be, in a way, part of the structure that holds patriarchy together, but they are not the ones that actually build the structure. They could be part of what's holding it together, simply from a daughter-mother, mother-son relationship. The mother-son relationship, I mean, as we loosely say it, so now, if this mother has been broken down through her own upbringing to a point where she feels sorry, this daughter that is being brought into her home by her own son, whom she loves, is a threat, then she becomes the one who perpetuates it, because now she's the one who's going to be going behind, knowing her power over her son. Remember earlier I spoke about the boy looking at the mother as a queen, but not even the partner being a princess. So we need to get to that point where we say these mothers have been broken to a point where, unfortunately, if it's broken, what it's going to churn out, the next product that it produces won't be the same product that was intended to. So much as we can go into the sin of religion and say God created us equal, but through the life experiences we've been broken. The same breaking that happened to us as men, as young men who were raised to be providers. And as the comment was saying, I grew up with my grandmother being the one who built the house, my grandfather being in Joburg, sending money home, and my grandmother multiplied that money. My grandmother multiplied that money every month until I grew up. So the power dynamics shouldn't be an issue. We should all be pushing together as partners.
Got you. Mesh, I got to run. But as we close this conversation, so what would you like to say to women and men who are engaging in this conversation and interrogating the essence and where it comes from?
In my closing comment, I actually have just questions, and I would direct this to our species, the women. Because I honestly think subconsciously we are perpetuating the patriarchy. I would ask this question, why are we why are we saying I just want women to ask themselves deeply that question, where does it come from? And if we really interrogate certain behaviors, we would then check, ourselves. We are asking that patriarchy should not exist, but somehow, subconsciously, we're still perpetuating behaviors that makes patriarchy to continue.
Yeah, you're making me go think now. You're making me go think. And that, of course, is Tsoso Musi, the co-founder of a couple of things in marriage counselor. PowerFam, thank you so much for engaging in the conversation. Keep them coming. I'll be reading some of your tweets as we progress. But time now is a minute after 2:30. Let's catch up with your latest in Power News with Thomas White.